What's up, traders? Another tough day. We're just jump right into this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Always appreciate the support. If you do have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them down below. Find me in Discord or over on Twitter. And let's get into this. First trade was on Run. And this is kind of the one that we're going to be discussing mostly here in this video. And yeah, I'm pretty frustrated with it overall. Trying to figure out exactly how to handle these going into the future. So where I think I kind of messed up with this, if we zoom in on this first trade, I have this issue where I'll get a starter, I'll add into it, and then we get this pullback. I take some off, looking for the bigger move for the rest of it down here at 32, and it decides to get bought up and go back up through the highs. Now, I either have to do one of two things. I basically have to do what I did and basically just fully commit to the trade, or I need to just cut it at the highs here and basically take the break-even trade, because it's probably going to be break-even because I'm going to take a loser on the rest of these. So my average is probably sitting here at 33, take some off on the way down, comes back up, stops at the highs. I'm basically giving back all the cents that I had here and taking it for a loss. So it's going to even itself out and probably be a break-even trade, even if it's a small loser, small winner, whatever. But I'm out of the trade and I probably avoid the rest of this trade, which we'll now look at, where I decide to basically commit to this thing, and hasn't been great. The other issue that I've been having is I start to assume what I think is the top, but in reality, it's just a bunch of fake outs. So we still had half our shares from here, which happened to be, I don't even know how many shares. We took 35. So we have 35 coming up to here. We add those 35 back. That's perfectly fine, right? It goes up to 71. We get the add at 54. That's fine. However, I think if I'm going to commit to a trade where I am trying to outlast the move up and look for the actual pullback whenever it happens, whether it's, 20 minutes from now, 3 hours from now, whatever it is, if it happens, right? We don't obviously always get a pullback, but in the case that we do, I need to not be such heavy size, because here's what happened. And here's what probably should have happened. What happened is I'm like, oh, look, this tried 77. It tried it again. It failed. I'm going to add some on the backside, looking for this to come back down. And if it works, that's awesome. My average was somewhere around like 33.20, 33.30. But as you can see, it comes down to 39, never quite gets there. It was 37, actually. I remember this because I remember saying it was 2 cents from my average. It never gets to my average and then goes back up. So what did this accomplish? I have a higher average, sure. If it works there, sure. But if it doesn't, now I have more size, right? Now, because I added another 35 there. So instead of just being 1-1, now I'm 1-1-1. So it's a 1-2 essentially, because I added these at the same average, right? I think these were at 55, these were at 54. So essentially adding double the size that I should have been if I'm looking to commit to this long term. So now it goes back up, test 34, comes up again, test 34 again. And as it's coming up to 34, in my head, I'm starting to think, well, I want to get this 34 add in case it doesn't do anything crazy. So we go ahead and add, which this was just to get us to an even 100 shares, which I think I messed it up because I ended up with 105 instead. But anyways, it goes up, it does test it, it does fail at first, starts to come back down, but ultimately comes back up. And at this point, we haven't had a pullback, right? This is not a pullback. This is consolidation, right? It came all the way up here and just consolidated sideways. No real pullback. But in my head, I've now added once, twice, and I add a third time up here, basically saying, okay, if we get up into the 34.20s, I'm just gonna have to cut it because I've added too much size. I don't want to let this keep grinding me. At this point, I have too much size to keep letting this grind. Like, what if this wanted to go up through 35? I would have way too much size to hold on for that point. I would hit my single trade max loss of $500. So I cut the whole thing once I realized it's not working. And this was a dumb trade. This was an emotional trade. This was me saying, oh, look, it went up a little bit higher. It's going to be a fake out. I'm going to get back in for 100 shares. So I do. It starts to work, then doesn't. I basically say I'm cutting it at the high. So I add another 100 shares saying if it wants to reject the highs and come back down, that's awesome. It doesn't. It goes higher. We stop out. We basically just chop ourselves out of, I think it was like 30, 40 bucks for no reason, right? There's no trade in here. Had I not been in this trade at all, I would never take this trade, right? It makes zero sense. but emotions get the best of you sometimes. However, this next trade was again for 100 shares. Now, the reason I took this one was because on charge point, CHPT, it was about to come up to highs. Now, if this would have went higher, run and charge point were basically moving together. And I didn't know that when I first got in, or else I wouldn't have traded both of them, knowing that I'm basically putting all my eggs in one basket, trading two from the same sector, et cetera. They were moving very similar to each other. However, it was coming up to the highs. I had a stop in at the highs on charge point, which you'll see because that one actually attempted a pullback. And if it went back to the highs, I was ready to cut it. So if run had continued past this point, the odds are charge point was going to stop out. So I basically put this 100 shares back on, wishing at that time that I would have said this to myself when I was in this, because I could have just kept these shares, or at least not added and then let it go a little bit more and then possibly add it up here and then look for the pullback. But essentially I was now putting my eggs all in one basket. Either I was going to take another like $15 loss on 100 shares here, just letting it go back to the highs, or it was going to work and charge point was going to work at the same time, allowing me to, make some money back here on run because I had a bunch of unrealized. This was $170 loss, I think it was. And also hopefully charge point would start working and we could end up making some money there. So that's what actually happened. And we started scale. So we had 100, took 50 off here, it came down, we took another 25 off here, and we've been just trailing this since then. As you can see, this arrow, that's when we put the trail in. So that's how long it's been in. Now, how we should have played this is when it came up, we get this first ad, that's fine. Now we just wait. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it goes higher. We wait for the next key area. The next key area is 34.20. Okay. So we're looking for that 20 cents through key areas. That's where we get our ads. So our next ad would negate these two, and it would be up here where we stopped out. So instead of stopping out, we would just be getting our second ad on the new trade, right? Because we're in 35, would have added 35 here, and then we would have done 70 up here, right? And then we wait for 34.70. So let's do some quick math real quick and see where that would have put us. So I got to go this way. You guys can see that still. So we were at 33.37 plus the 33.55, was it? 4? We'll just do 4. Divide that by 2 and then add 34. We'll just say 15 and then divide that by 2. So our average would have been 33.80. So this is assuming we didn't get another ad. So our average would have been right around here. Well, we'll get rid of it because that's kind of where our stop is at the moment. So had we didn't get any ads, eventually this would have worked out. Even if we only had one ad here and one ad here instead of stopping out and none of this up here, we eventually would have had this work out and it would have been perfectly fine, right? And we wouldn't have had the big realized loss and we never would have been down that far. Let's see how much we would have been down. 35, 70. So it's 140. So 34, what was the high? 34.54 minus 33.80 times that by 140, $103. So we would have never been down more than $103. And this would have finally gave us our pullback that we were looking for. And we would have been out fine. We could have scaled out looking for, a bigger winner, et cetera. Basically like charge point, which happened to be our second trade. So charge point, we'll bring this up. You can see it's pretty similar. However, we did kind of the same thing with the ads, but it turns out that we started this one a little bit smaller. It wasn't on purpose, but I noticed that the unrealized was adding up a little bit slower. It also didn't run the same way that run did, no pun intended, because when run put this high in here, it actually came back up and went higher. If you remember, we take a quick look, put this high in right here, which is that first high, and then it ended up going higher, where CHPT never did that. So when we got to this side, at this point, I was very convinced I was cutting this at the highs because look, this actually had an attempt at a pullback, even though it wasn't a great pullback because we never got back below the previous pivot's lows. It still was, to me, considered a decent attempt at a pullback. So I was ready to cut this one at the highs, which this one would have been a $230 loss, I think it was. So it would have been a pretty rough day. $240, $170 on the other one. And yeah, it would have sucked. It would have been over $400 loss on the day. However, it starts to come back up to that high. And this is what I was talking about on the other chart when we decided to get back into run that very last time. It's because this was coming up to here. So either it worked or it didn't. We had 500 shares at this point, and I could have obviously played this one a lot different with my ads as well. And on the backside here, I added 250, where I wish I would have just doubled the share size because I was that close to stopping out. But in my head, I was like, well, we're 10 cents away from stopping 500 shares. That's another $50. I'm already down what I am. Do I really want to risk another $50? 25 sounds a lot better. But my average would have been up here at like 56, 57 with 250 more shares. And that would have been really nice, which is how this is supposed to play out. However, I shouldn't have had this many shares to begin with. So within lies another issue. I really think when I'm starting these plays, I need to just stick to adding in the key areas. I need to be okay with the 1, 1, 2, if I'm going to do it that way, or 1, 2, 6, however I'm going to do it, but I need to stick to the key areas. And that's my lesson moving forward. Obviously, we're still in these, not going to be holding these past 4 o'clock. So I was just seeing if they had any more fade in them. Had I been here when this reclaimed 15, probably would have took this one off, but I was bowling, which I bowled a 290, by the way. Pretty proud about that. And real quick, we do have 2 other trades that I kind of botched. Was in this one. NVTA got a really good entry on it. It came all the way down. I was hoping that this one would be one that just faded the rest of the day. I waited for it to come all the way down, test that area. I was like, oh, this could have a good chance. And then I just wasn't paying attention. I don't even think I had the chart up, assuming that we might get a nice fade down below 350. As you can see, it decided to go back up. And originally I had to stop at highs, but I saw it curling and I was like, if it gets back above this area here, which happened to be my average as well, I'm just going to take it off because I botched it. Should have taken it off down here and just move on with it. It would only been a $10 win, but single entry $10 win. That's kind of what we're going for. Same with PDD. This one was, it just moved up really nice. Pretty much no pullback, consolidated sideways, started to form this little descending triangle, took it, put an order out at 25, 52.25. And as you can see, this came down to 30 and I wasn't here. Again, I don't remember what I was doing. Devin said something last second. I pulled it up. It was already back above 50. And I was like, that kind of negates it. I was already almost back up to my average, which not at my average. I was at 53.01. But I was like, well, let's see if it just bounces and tries to come back down. It did try. It got back up to the highs, but failed. And my stop was at the highs. But as you can see, it did come up and get me. So that was another $10 win that we could have had. And as you can see, this thing is that's just crazy how it just goes so sideways like that. But we could have had 2 other $10 winners, which would have been $20. And if you add that to the 32-ish that were unrealized, that would put us down only $25 on the day. So huge difference. Instead of being down over $400 to only be down what's looking to be like $40. To take 1/10 of the loss, I'm going to be pretty happy about that. So it looks like we're actually getting some action here on CLF. Little volume out of nowhere. See if we can't maybe find a possible live trade here for you to end this video. Not a huge fan of, it's just chilling here. See what it gives us. Take a little stab. It wants to give it to us at 1827.
Order filled.
All right. Got filled there at 1827. Just look for half the move back down. Nothing special. See what it does here at yesterday's high. We'd be looking for this to go up through 1850 for an ad and be patient with this. Or if it wants to just come back down, got an order sitting there at 1812. Take the small win. A little bit of a impromptu live trade here to end the video. This is like perfect timing. I saw David posted CLF in ISW. I just had the sound turned off because I didn't want it beeping in your ear the entire video. Here we go, coming back down. See if we can get the move down through 20. Of course, it'll end up being like a longer trade and I wouldn't be able to put it in anyway. You know what? If you want to see the results of the trade, join the Discord or look on Twitter because I'm sure I'll post it on there, but I'm not going to let this video run forever. Appreciate you being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Always appreciate the support. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below or find me in Discord or on Twitter, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.